Okay, so like Ken said, my name is Mac. I'm with Missouri Coalition for the Environment. I am the Community Outreach Specialist for Kansas City, and I'll explain a little bit what that means. First and foremost, if you haven't heard of us, MCE is the Missouri Coalition for the Environment. We have been around since 1969. They formed at the St. Louis Conference on the Environment at the Missouri Botanical Garden as the region's first independent citizens group created to address a broad range of environmental policy issues. So they came about before the Environmental Protection Agency existed, before the Department of Natural Resources, and before the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act. And they kind of came out, they formed as a result of some of the hazardous waste that was left behind in St. Louis from nuclear testing. So that is how they formed. We are a nonpartisan organization. Our work spans across Missouri, and we're also engaged in some national policy and incentives that protect Missourians as well. Our work primarily focuses on 5 pillars of environmental advocacy, which are clean air, safe water, sustainable food, parks and public lands, and remediated waste. So our staff is comprised of our community outreach specialists, so myself in Kansas City, and then we have a community outreach specialist in Columbia and in St. Louis as well. We work to engage with the community to create an understanding of local environmental concerns and environmental justice issues, and work to find resolutions with the municipalities, city, state, county, whatever it may be, and with other organizations that might be able to offer assistance. We also have our Known and Grown program, which is a program that works up to 150 miles outside of St. Louis. We work with farmers to help them create eco-friendly, equitable, and thriving local food systems. So we help them market their products, engage with other farmers to get different resources. And then we also have our policy team. So our policy director and our policy coordinator, they track bills, they monitor compliance with bills, they engage the people of the state in the legislative process. So I just want to give a little shout out to this, who's one of our community outreach specialists, Kristen Camuso. She has been really instrumental in passing the RECA amendment, which just got passed yesterday, I believe. That's legislation that's going to expand the RECA Act and compensate Americans who have been made ill by exposure to radiation, and that includes herself. So in St. Louis, nuclear waste stored near the Lambert International Airport seeped into Coldwater Creek in the 60s. People in this area believe that contamination has been responsible for cancer and other illness for a long, long time. And there's also cancer concerns in St. Charles County, where uranium was processed and a large quarry became contaminated. So the White House just indicated that President Biden will sign that legislation, which is really, really exciting. This is just some pictures of some work that we do. This is actually our community outreach specialist, Kristen, in the corner here, talking to some legislators that you might recognize, working on getting the RECA bill.
Sorry to interrupt you, but they can't really see because we're actually showing the PowerPoint. So you're going to probably want to see the photo on the upper left. Even though you can point
you're
at
right.
it, but the people here
Right.
don't see which
the
one.
upper left, yeah.
Upper left
beneath that is our most recent and our first trash cleanup we did along Truman Road here in Kansas City. In the middle, we have this Wild and Scenic Film Festival that we hosted this year that we had, I want to say 200 to 300 people come out to, which is really exciting. They show different films of environmental documentaries and things like that. Up there, some of you might be in this picture. I think Ken is in the corner there. This is our eco-org meetings that we have here in Kansas City to unite different organizations. And then here's another picture of a volunteer event that we do. So we have a wide range of things that we have going on. The next couple of slides that I'm going to show to you, these are all coming from our bill tracker that was put together by our policy team, and they do very deep research. They have put together a really incredible tool for people who aren't familiar with different bills that are going on. And you can find this tool for yourself at our website if you just type in the bill tracker when you get to our website, because I'm just going to go over a handful of things. There's so much else going on that I wouldn't be able to get to. So some of the bills that we're following right now that are high priority for us, that we are in opposition to, is there are a couple of bills that are making the initiative petition process more challenging, which if you're familiar with that, in the state of Missouri, any person can put forward an idea to be created into a bill if you think that something isn't in our state that should be. And if it has enough support, it can go to vote and then be voted in. That's actually how the Conservation Department in Missouri was started. So right now there are several bills that are making that more difficult. Things like you have to have a certain font or a certain text size or they're not gonna consider it. Just things like that that don't need to be there. So we're in opposition of that. And also the changing the waters of the state definition, which would change it to the waters of the US definition. And that would cause some issues with regulation of groundwater, which is the drinking source for about 50% of Missourians. It would also change the regulation for wetlands, and it would cause issues with hunting and fishing, which is a big pastime of Missourians and also a huge source of revenue. So it could be very problematic. We are in support of the Clean Water Commission conduct requirements and public interest bills, which would basically state that right now there's a board of 7 for the Clean Water Commission. In the past, it has always been majority public, but now it is majority industry. And we would like to see it be majority public again so that the public's interests are considered. Specialty crop tax credits. We are in support of this, which would basically have tax credits for urban farmers and farmers in food deserts that grow food for people. And then lastly, release of information about hazardous waste to current tenants in areas where the soil that they live in or that they live on top of and the areas that they live in have been affected by hazardous waste.
Give me an example.
Like the work that we have been doing in St. Charles County with the uranium and in St. Louis. So people that move to that area that might not know, they would have to be informed. So here's some bills related to energy and utility. So this is actually directly what our bill tracker looks like. So as you can see, it'll say what the latest version of the bill is, what is the most recent action, who is who has signed on to that bill, what it is, if we oppose it, and what the category is. So if you are interested in seeing specifically energy and utilities bills, you can go to our bill tracker and see everything marked as energy and utility. So this is just one example. House Bill 1435 would allow electrical corporations to charge for services based on the cost of certain construction work in progress. So our policy team believes that this would, that Missouri ratepayers shouldn't be forced to foot the bill for risky and unnecessary nuclear construction, and that we should be supporting a clean energy future rather. House Bill 2541 creates provisions relating to deferrals by electrical corporations. It would raise electric rates without any additional facilities built or any better service as a resort. PISA, which is Public and Service Accounting, is unique to Missouri utility law. It adds additional revenue to regulated electric companies for every distribution investment made. The additional amount is added during a rate case and is calculated by retroactively adding a carrying cost to that investment. This amount is added to the rate increase while ignoring other retroactive factors that could offset that increase. The general rule is that retroactive rate increases are otherwise illegal in Missouri, so we're in opposition of that. Senate Bill 829 modifies provisions relating to renewable natural gas programs. So renewable natural gas is just another name for factory farm biogas. We have a whole webpage if you were interested in reading more about that. It is not safe, it's not clean, it's not affordable. So again, we're in opposition because we're hoping for a renewable, clean energy future for Missouri. Here's some more bills. House Bill 1449 and 1805 modify provisions for the construction of electric transmission facilities. It would create unnecessary barriers to building new transmission lines, which we need in order to use more wind and solar energy in Missouri. Senate Bill 833 creates provisions relating to the condemnation of land by certain utilities and prohibits the use of eminent domain for the production of wind and solar. So this would again hinder the state's ability to increase our renewable energy production and thereby hinder our ability to decrease our dependence on fossil fuels and limit contribution to climate change. Senate Bill 747 creates provisions relating to electric utilities by making transmission lines harder to put up, like the Greenbelt Expressway. So it's just going to make it harder to bring renewable energy into our state. House Bill 1511 requires political subdivisions that require the installation of electric vehicle charging stations at certain businesses to pay the costs associated with the installation, maintenance, and operation of such stations, which would put roadblocks in the way of a cleaner transportation future for Missouri. So a lot of these bills are just getting in the way of the progress that we could be making in Missouri. And then continuing on, House Bill 1435, 1804, 2541 would allow utilities to charge customers for new power plants before they are completed or operational. This bill would undo the longstanding ban on construction work in progress that passed in 1976 under Proposition 1 with a 63% of the statewide vote. So this will shift the liability for potential nuclear energy projects to consumers rather than the company tasked with constructing and receiving the necessary permits for their operation, and it'll incentivize the creation of new nuclear power plants in Missouri and add to the issue of how do they dispose of that waste healthily and without destroying the environment. Senate Bill 1247 seeks to give existing utilities in our state the right of first refusal to build parts of new transmission lines. So this will cut out competition and make it harder for companies who want to build renewable energy transmission lines for because the existing utilities will get first dibs. By giving the existing utilities the first option to refuse to build new transmission lines, it's possible it'll lead to increased costs for customers, as the existing utilities would have a monopoly over the build and could charge higher rates than a competitor would have charged.
Is the question coming through?
Can you repeat the question?
He asked if the Missouri House is, and the Senate, I'm assuming, is supermajority. And Adam said, yes, it is. We're hoping sometimes with we do a lot of advocacy. We're hoping that sometimes they'll understand that it's not an issue of political party, but it's an issue of health and wellness of the entire state. But yes, bills related to energy and utilities that we are in support of. House Bill 1836 would modify provisions relating to the assessment of solar energy property and provide a de minimis property tax valuation for real property and excluding land or tangible personal property associated with solar projects built or contracted to sell power on or before December 31st, 2024. This bill is creating an incentive for production of solar power by reducing taxes owed on some property used in creating solar power. House Bill 2574 and Senate Bill 1347 are creating a community solar pilot program. Senate Bill 1228 authorizes a tax credit for purchase of electric vehicles. House Bill 2342 establishes provisions for community solar gardens, and House Bill 1687 modifies provisions for renewable energy resources. So again, this is just a handful. There are more. If you're interested, you can go to our bill tracker. Yes.
Yeah, I just don't want to ask a lot of questions on it, but what's a community solar garden?
I'm not. What is the community solar garden? I'm not actually entirely sure what that would encompass. I don't know. Does anybody?
David has the answer.
Take the.
I'll take you the mic. Hold on, David. I'll bring you a mic. Here you go. Just hang on to that right there and talk at it. You got it.
Community solar is where you set up solar panels on a site and people can virtually get their power from that site through an economic arrangement. It allows people, particularly in apartments and homes where solar on their building or structure is not really very viable or very poor choice. It allows them to participate that. Now, usually the community solar is either owned by a municipal utility or a third-party entity, and they would have to enter into an agreement with the public power company for that. some public power companies have their own version of community solar by just signing into a special rate program for them. But it's particularly popular in places where utilities have lagged behind adapting solar, and allows a group of people to get together and do it. It typically is a megawatt to 2 or 3 megawatts. It's not a large project, but it's more than you would see on an individual building.
It says too, the question was also the gardens, wasn't it? Solar gardens?
Well,
That would be agri.
yeah, our ag solar. We just had a program last month on ag solar. It's just you and putting those solar panels of any kind, and it could be any person doing that. You just coordinate the agricultural use of the property with the solar panels. Now you could hay, you could have habitat for bees or other productions. You can put grazing animals out there. You can grow vegetables like a urban garden, you know, where the people would then take they grow the vegetables, would take the produce to the community market to sell. There's just all kinds of ways to go with that.
All right, thank you, David. That was David Roberts. He's a board member, HRES.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay. And then, oh, there we go. Lastly, and I'm not the most knowledgeable about incentives, but I did want to include it. The incentives that are going on in Missouri, the federal tax credit, of course. So homeowners can deduct up to 30% of the cost of their solar project. The Missouri property tax exemption. So if there's an increase in your property value as a result of installing a solar system, that would be exempt from taxes. Net metering, Ameren, Evergy, and Liberty Utilities in the Kansas City metro area offer 25-cent per watt rebate. I know that Columbia Utilities has their own net metering program. I didn't include it since we're talking mostly about Kansas City. And then the PACE program, Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, allows property owners to use PACE financing, which provides fixed rate upfront financing for a solar project that gets repaid on annual property tax bills, I think up to 20 years.
Oh, question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, hold on. Hold the question. I'll be right back over there. Guess I should have just stayed over there. All right. Here we go. 1 second. There you go, David.
The utilities seem to be perennially trying to get the ratepayers to pay for the construction of resources, particularly nuclear. And yet we have this act that was voted on that prohibits such activities. I thought that act was in the Constitution and we'd have to, in effect, amend the Constitution, or is that not the case? It was just an act that was adopted by the voters then, and the legislature, do they have the authority to undo that on their own? Or do they have to take the matter up to the ballot to the statewide?
That's a good question, and I'm not totally sure because I would have to go back and see how far along in the process it is. You know, you would think if it was a part of the Constitution that they would have to amend it, but you know, I don't know. And then this is our website for anyone interested. So MissouriEnvironment.org.
Okay, thank you.